I've really enjoyed leading global teams. The experience of being able to travel and be able to interact with my teams in India and Ireland has been a wonderful experience. My first challenge was making sure that we had a clean integration of all our credit and collection activities. You had to still make sure that these companies were staying within their credit line, because when it was a manual effort, you were out actually almost having to tally all these invoices every day and making sure that they weren't exceeding their credit line and then forcing them to pay down.
Those customers who are actually exceeded, what kind of actions do you do? Do you shut down the customer or send more reminders or escalations alerts? I think that's a very important problem statement. So great to
The biggest collections efforts that I ever went through, one of the biggest transformation of collections that I led was at NEC, and they were 70% past due. They were having a negative cash flow on top of that. You have to get executive management supporting you on this, because you'll really get pushback by sales. You need to know from a seasoned leader like I feel like I am, you have to know how far you can push things. You have to learn that sense of that balance.
I completely agree. And we have also seen our customers when they onboard their customers. Typically, they'll say, hey, my priority customers, let's not put it, but the AR flow, AR product transformation.
ERPs have always lacked in credit and collections. Credit and collections, unfortunately, has been an afterthought in so many ERP systems. And I don't understand why, with AR being the most liquid asset of any corporation. I think possibly them utilizing a tool like yours or something like that to enhance the side, especially as we move into the AI side of the technology, is going to only get them there quicker than them trying to build something homegrown or building something within their own ERP.
And what is your take on AI?
We use a tool like ChatGPT, but it's not ChatGPT, to plug all of our financials into. In 30, 45 seconds, it has analyzed the entire 10K, 10Q, gives me a synopsis. I can read that and tell you in a minute of what kind of credit line this customer needs to be established.
I think the usage of GPT, like tool for converting the financials and converting other data points into getting a credit rating. I love that answer because I have also built something in that direction. Once companies start building good AI decently, we have products with lesser hallucinations, more better predictability. I also love the fact that you've actually gone ahead and applied AI to make your work better in terms of the credit scoring and controllership.
So all I ask for finance professionals is to be understanding and empathetic to your employees.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Amartya Singh, the co-founder and CEO of Inflow, a product built by and for modern finance teams. Welcome to the 18th episode of Inside the CFO Office podcast, where we explore the journeys of finance leaders, discuss the challenges they have overcome, and gain insights into the future of finance. Today, we are honored to have Mark with us to speak on managing global teams across credit and collections and AR. Mark has more than 2 decades of experience as a leader in credit collections and AR. He currently serves as a senior global director at Trellix. Apart from Trellix, Mark has also served at multiple other amazing firms like Evoque, IBM, NEC Corporation, Rexel Holdings, and many others. Join us as we unravel Mark's phenomenal journey in the world of finance. Hello, Mark.
Great,
How are you doing
Amartya.
today?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I think super pumped and excited to have a great discussion on the entire aspect of credit collections and AR. I'm super excited to have you. So should we start?
Absolutely. Let's
Mark?
get started.
I think first things first, would love to know about your journey in the world of finance. I know you have been a big part of the credit collections and AR for more than 2 decades. You've seen a lot of things happening in the last 2 decades. Would love to know how has been your journey across the last couple of decades and how have you managed global teams in this?
Absolutely. Well, let's just say my journey wasn't one of those journeys that I wanted to become a credit and collections professional. That was never in the cards. I started in school in accounting I thought I'd be somewhere in finance, but never really suspected that I'd be in credit and collections. And so a company approached me about being a credit manager trainee for their company, and I took them up on it. And the kind of the rest is history. I really kind of found my niche in credit and collections. I really loved it. I enjoyed interacting with people, uh, the customers, and just becoming very involved in the knowledge. I transitioned out of accounting into credit management classes when I was still in Houston, Texas, and took credit management classes for almost a year before I was transferred to Dallas, Texas with another company. They picked me up and I became assistant corporate credit manager here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Worked in many different industries over the years, transitioned, believe it or not. That was a greeting card industry here in Dallas that I started with. It was very interesting to say the least. But then I slowly moved into electronics and went from electronics into semiconductors. I worked, and that's when I really became into the worldwide credit, global credit management when I worked for Rexel Corporation. Rexel was sold. Was relocated to under National Semiconductor in California. I then chose to go in the telecom industry, which I was with two companies in telecom industry, one startup. I was employee number 40. Unfortunately, the dot-com boom kind of burst our company, and unfortunately, we went out of business. But I moved on, went to work for Samsung Telecommunications. Samsung was a great opportunity, learned a lot, had many different roles there. It really expanded my knowledge and horizons on many areas of business and finance and operations. I stayed with Rexel for a couple of years, and NEC came calling, NEC America, and they really wanted me, saw this to be a good, challenging opportunity at NEC. Moved to NEC, was there for 4 years until they decided they were going to outsource most of my operations to the Philippines. So I moved on to IBM Cloud at that point. I worked for IBM Cloud for nearly 4 years until they outsourced most of their operations, my operations to Bangalore, India. So after that, I did some consulting work, worked for a company called Evoque, now called Center Square, but I helped them build out their credit and collections operations. And then I heard about the McAfee opportunity, about their global credit and collections director. So I applied over there. Fortunately, I knew a couple of folks over there as well. They helped me get in the door. And the next thing, I was hired as the global credit director at McAfee. Of course, this was all during COVID as well. So I was interviewed, hired, onboarded, completely in a remote environment, and stayed that way for years. And still today, we work remotely. Trellix does for the most part. So that was my journey with my history, my career. We'll talk a little bit about how I ended up with Trellix after being hired with McAfee in just a few minutes, but that would probably be my next question you'll ask me.
I think you have been at Trellix. I mean, as you mentioned, McAfee to Trellix, I think you've done the transition. You've been for, I think, 5.5 years. It's a long time. I think you've seen both sides of the world, COVID, post-COVID. And you know that we have seen a lot of changes in the finance world, a CFO tech ecosystem, pre-COVID and during COVID and post-COVID. So how has been your experience
My
at Trellix?
experience at Trellix has been very fun. It's been exciting. I've had a lot of new experiences at Trellix, going from McAfee, being carved out of McAfee in 2021. McAfee announced that they were selling off the enterprise side of the business. A private equity company ended up acquiring us, and we became Trellix in 2022. But that was a very, very fast paced time because when I came into McAfee in 2020, they were also preparing for IPO or, initial public offering. And so I
Right.
had to get SOX compliant very quickly with my team. I had to make sure all the audits were in place, all the policy procedures were up to date. We had repeatable processes that was documented, all in place. I mean, this was a real rigorous first 6 months of the job. And they felt that I could do it since I had been in other publicly held companies and I was very knowledgeable of SOX compliance issues around the credit and collections. So I think that's what helped propel me into the job in 2020.
Got it. I think at Trellix also you've been leading global teams across geography. So how has that worked out for
It's
you?
worked out great, Amarta. I've really enjoyed leading global teams. I have teams in Bangalore or Bengaluru, India, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I have a team in Cork, Ireland, and I have a team here in Plano, Texas. Now, I do get to go to Bangalore about once or twice a year. I try to go to Ireland once a year, but of course, I do get together with my team once or twice a week here in our Plano offices. However, the experience of being able to travel and be able to interact with my teams in India and Ireland has been a wonderful experience. They always enjoy me when I come over. I try to do team building. When you have teams that are remote like that, do you get a chance to go over, do some team building? That's what I recommend anybody that's in my role with other companies. Go over there, do some activities, take them to lunch, take them to dinner, reward them with accolades and give them the encouragement. If they need constructive criticism,
Right.
it's always a good time to do it as well.
Right. One question here, I think this is also a very important question when you're working across geographies. Time zone becomes one important thing, right? You're working across an island time zone, you're working at your own time zone, you're working at the Indian time zone. I mean, there are three different time zones. How do you juggle the time? Because the time zones are
Well,
pretty
you
much
have to be pretty flexible, to be honest with you. When I work, I don't particularly my schedule isn't a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. Typically for my team in India, when I meet with them, I usually get up earlier in the morning, like 6 a.m. and meet with them because they're just beginning the end of their day, 4:30 in the afternoon. So I do try to accommodate, where they're not working outside of their schedule. Always try to be first considerate in that sense. Fortunately, my Ireland team is just 5 to 6 hours, depending on the standard or daylight savings time over here. And so it makes it a little bit easier to work with them. I usually meet in the mornings between 8, 9 with them in the mornings. And so, that's not too much of an issue there, but it is a little challenging with the team in Bangalore. So I also try to be a little bit understanding that I don't want to have them working at night attending meetings. And when I do have an all hands meeting, I try to make it as early as possible, like 8 a.m. so they're not too late.
God, I loved your answer. I think the key over here is the flexibility and having a empathetic understanding of your team member really helps a lot because the time zones differ. Hence, there are a lot of chances of leaders being really wanting things in a particular way. But I think in a more long-termish way or in a more mature way of handling is to have that kind of understanding that the time zones can merge in between three different time zones. So I think it's challenging, but I think you've done a great job in terms of handling diverse team. I also love the answer. Let's move on to the next question a little bit more towards the work that we do, right? I think you worked in the credit and collection side, right? On both of the sides. We'd love to know what has been the single biggest transformation project that you have done in the credit side or another one on collection side. We'd love to know what were the challenges that you faced, how did you
Sure.
navigate them, and how did you
I
go
would
about
have
it?
to go back to the biggest credit challenge side was the transformation during the whole Trellix carve out, FireEye merger. and deployment of Pay collection, credit and collection tool all at the same time. This all happened in 2022. And it was one of those things that it was hard to prioritize things because, something would pop up. It was kind of like the game whack-a-mole. I mean, you'd be over here doing this, and then all of a sudden you get pulled away because IT needs you to prioritize this. And it was a very challenging moment, but I tried to take it in pieces and break it down. My first challenge was making sure that we had a clean integration of all our credit and collection activities between out of McAfee, carving that out. The big thing was misdirected cash, where they were still paying McAfee and the money went to us. We tried to simplify it as much as possible. It wasn't that simple, but we did it, and we did it very well. And so we established a process for that. For the credit with FireEye, as soon as we were in the final stages, we started folding in FireEye into our portfolio. The unfortunate thing about FireEye is that they were also letting go their employees, and the employees didn't have a lot of anything left in the company. So they really weren't working our receivables and credit too much. So I took it over manually. And from that standpoint, took it over manually, brought in 2 collectors that was senior collectors. We established some file downloads from FireEye where they would send over the invoices, and we collected those invoices manually for 6 months. We reduced our past due. The past due when we took that over was nearly 60% past due all invoices. And by the time we finished, it was less than 10% past due before we integrated. So I know that was more of a collections, but you had credit involved as well. You had to still manage your credit lines. You had to still make sure that these companies were staying within their credit line, because when it was a manual effort, you were actually almost having to tally all these invoices every day and making sure that they weren't exceeding their credit line and then forcing them to pay down. It was kind of a headache nightmare. And then, of course, the credit and collections tool, Pay, we knew with the integration of these 2 companies, my team couldn't handle just overall manual out of SAP. We had SAP, or we still do. And SAP really doesn't have a good collection function. So we needed some bolt-on solution, and Pay seemed to have checked all the boxes at the time. And that's the reason why we went with them.
Got it. I agree with you. We have spoken a little bit on those lines. I think there are 2-3 aspects of it. One is the credit line and understanding what should be the credit limit for that specific customer while you are doing the credit checks on that customer. You mentioned about that. And then linking that entire credit line to setting up the decisions on credit limit, credit period, and all the other things. And once you start servicing the specific customers, the SAP does not have automated controls in terms of matching a credit limit, receivables exposure, and then how do you link with it overdue? How do you prioritize those customers who are actually exceeding? What kind of actions do you do? Do you shut down the customer or send more reminders or escalations alerts? I think that's a very important problem statement. So great to know. I think you have gone about automating it, because manually tracking them is very difficult, because you have to do it a day by day basis, manual analysis, and then you do something, then you realize, hey, this is happening, something else is happening. Then what do? You have to the salesperson, you have to speak with multiple other people, take approvals. First is identifying what is the credit limit. Second is knowing when the credit limit gets exceeded. And third is understanding what to do about it, what escalations. And so great to know. I think that combines the credit part. Anything from the collection side also? Did you work on reminders or some dunning emails, escalations?
Yeah, I'll tell
like
you,
that?
one of the biggest collections efforts that I ever went through, one of the biggest transformation of collections that I led was at NEC when I was there. I was first hired in 2011. One of their problems that they wanted to bring in a new credit and collections director was that the situation had really deteriorated and they were 70% past due. and they needed someone that could come in there, assess the situation. And not only they were 70% past due, they were having a negative cash flow on top of that. So they came in and told me, they said, look, we not only we want you to collect this money, we want you to help us turn around the cash flow. We want to be in positive free cash flow going forward. So that was a huge effort. I took a 3-pronged approach. Of course, you had to clean up collections to begin with. That was a little bit of enforcing credit holes. Unfortunately, I did have to make some resource changes in the department. There was some people that just wasn't working out and they refused to conform. I ended up bringing in a strong manager, collections manager, and we started enforcing policy. Now, one of the things you have to do, though, you have to get executive management supporting you on this, because you'll really get pushback by sales. You don't have executive management support. That was one of the things I advocated for to begin with before I even started on this initiative and got this backing from the CEO down, that you had my support if you can get this AR turned around. So that was one of the reasons why I took the job, because I had ELT support. So, and the 2 other approaches, what I did, he put me on the task force. So we created a task force with multiple departments. We had the AP department, we had the procurement department, and the credit collections department. The 3 of us, what we did was that we looked and examined the AP processes. Were they paying too soon? Were they paying on time? We established some they were paying too soon. Some they were not taking advantage of discounts, which that would help the company. You pay those first, those net 60, net 90, you pay them on net 60, net 90. At quarter end, you have a cutoff on the 25th. You don't pay after the 25th at quarter end. On procurement, you negotiate longer terms with your customer, with your suppliers. You do this to try to extend your cash flow. So all 3 of those components that we put together, it's really turned the whole ship around, so to speak. And within a year's time, we went from a negative 55 million to a positive over 40 million in less than a year's time. So it can be done. It takes discipline and working with these 3 departments in order to make it happen.
Got it. Loved your answer. I think what you mentioned were 2, 3 things. First thing was the need of discipline, rigor, and a certain level of policies and systems to be in place for the team to adhere to, because of what the problem happens. Here you have such a big overdue. Can't be saying overdue and you take one action to get the overdue down. It has to be a focused approach in terms of having, okay, this is happening, the overdue is exceeding 30 or due is exceeding 30 days, or the aging is getting 60 days, 90 days. What exactly are the steps that you do? And if the steps are not being followed, what are the mechanisms to review such missteps, right? So I think that is important. And I loved actually the approach that, the linking ARAP and the 3 departments that you mentioned, because that in itself is how the cash flows are maintained, right? If you get money fast, you should not be paying money fast, right? So there is a certain level of balances which is required. And I think the third very, very great thing that you talked about is, the entire aspect of importance of leadership. Because I think in AR also, in collections, credit collection side, one of the a little bit dicey element is chasing customers. They are paying you. Should you actually chase a lot more or should you chase less? And if you're chasing them a lot more or you're pushing them, they're not very happy and they say, I don't want to do business with you. You're just too pushy with your receivables. Then the dependencies on sales guys. And sales guys would say, my numbers are getting impacted. I mean, these are my yearly numbers, be it the business development guys or you look at key account guys. For them, it's important. So that's where the business leadership mandate comes in, because they understand that without the cash, it's not important how money you make. Cash flow is the one of the most important aspects. So loved your answer. I think
Right. It's always important to get executive buy-in when you're pushing on, when you have some big collection initiative. It's good at any time, to be honest with you. High visibility customers, white glove customers, sometimes things will happen. It's rather than just going off and pursuing collections on
Right.
those particular customers, you engage your executives, you give them the heads up, you let them know that this is the situation, and you ask for their support. Well, I do that a lot of time. And if you get into a real touchy situation, I've found over the years that's highly sensitive and you have a very large customer. I have one at Trellix that I'm not going to name because everybody would know it. But I utilize my executive team to collect because I can push so far when the communication stops. I escalate it straight up to the executive team. And you need to know uh, from a seasoned leader like I feel like I am, you have to know how far you can push things. You have to learn that sense of that balance and knowing that. Otherwise, I've seen too many collectors get into too many situations where they end up getting in trouble because they didn't go to the leaders first. So you have to learn how to balance that.
Right. I completely agree. And we have also seen our customers when they onboard their customers. Typically, they'll say, hey, my priority customers, let's not put it, but the AR flow, AR product transformation. Let's first have the category B, category 2 and 3 customers. Let's be comfortable and then put the category 1 customers so that, it all works out fine. They are like the crown jewels of our customer set. So specifically the same 80/20 rule. So I love your answer. I think it takes somebody as experienced as you and as mature as you to understand the balance between pushing a lot and pushing just the right way. I still loved your answer. Touched upon, I think, let's
Okay.
move to the next question. We touched upon that a little. We're talking about the entire SAPs of the world and Oracles of the world. And we have gamut of ERPs. Would love to know how's been your approach, and especially in the credit collections and ER. I would love to know a little bit on what is your take. Are ERPs equipped to handle these, or do we need to have certain level of capabilities? And importantly, what is your take on AI? We have had a few conversations on AI, and how do you see AI? What are the 1, 2 fields where you really see AI making a lot of difference in
Okay.
credit collection?
Well, first off, ERPs have always lacked in credit and collections. Credit and collections, unfortunately, has been an afterthought in so many ERP systems. And I don't understand why, with AR being the most liquid asset of any corporation. It has never made sense to me. In all of my career jobs, nothing has ever just been built out that is a be all type credit and collections functions within an ERP system. So for the most part, I've had to, over the last 20 years, I've actually had to use different collection tools, Get Paid, Yay Pay, Cortera, a couple other little companies that just didn't really work out well. But you have to utilize those things in order to be scaled to growth. I mean, because otherwise you sink in an ERP system. It's all manual spreadsheets. When I came into McAfee, that's all they were doing. They were collecting on spreadsheets. Here is a cybersecurity technology company, and they had nothing but exporting out of SAP and collecting off of spreadsheets. So from that standpoint, I think it's getting there. I think that some of the ERP systems has companies have started to embrace a little bit more, but they're still not there 100%. I know when I was at Evoque as the consultant over there, and I was only over there briefly for about 4 months, they wanted to use their credit collection tool within NetSuite. That was probably the best I had seen of all the different ERP systems. It still lacked in many ways. And I know other companies that have NetSuite, they don't utilize that module within. I still think ERP systems are lacking and far behind. They eventually may get there, but I think possibly them utilizing a tool like yours or something like that to enhance the side, especially as we move into the AI side of the technology, is going to only get them there quicker than them trying to build something homegrown or building something within their own ERP system.
And what is your take on AI? What is your favorite thing you believe that AI is going to really transform in the field
Well,
of
I think it's going to
collections?
do two things. I think it's first off, it's going to make decisions, and I know it makes decisions a lot quicker. Where on the credit side, already today, we use a tool like Chat GPT, but it's not Chat GPT, to plug all of our financials into. And we ask them to give us a complete readout on the financial stability of the company. And in 30, 45 seconds, it has analyzed the entire 10K, 10Q, gives me a synopsis. I can read that and tell you in a minute of what kind of credit line this customer needs to be established. We can look at their DNB, you can actually put their DNB in there and say, analyze this DNB, tell me what is your thoughts on a credit limit should be, or whatever credit report that you use. It's a fantastic tool. It increases
Right.
your credit knowledge. So instead of credit analyst sitting there and analyzing a financial, plugging in score sheets all day, this does it for you. And so we're
Got it.
using that quite a bit. We are exploring other opportunities within the other collections as well. We're just kind of in our premature stage of that. But I think AI is going to disrupt everything. I think the only negative thing to this is that in some companies, it may cause employees to find other opportunities within the company or something like that. I do see
Right.
that. My goal is that that's not what I
Right.
want to do in my team. I want to redeploy if necessary, but I do feel like there will be some companies that is very heavily staffed that do repetitive work, that AI will
Yeah.
somehow replace some of that repetitive work. Fortunately, my team is very thinly staffed to begin with. And so I don't think I'm going to have that kind of issue. But I know companies that do have, especially with cash application,
Yeah.
if it's repetitive work, then that it may impact cash application as well.
Got it. So great. I think I loved your answers through and through. I think the usage of GPT like tool for converting the financials and converting other data points into getting a credit rating. I love that answer because we have spoken about it. We have also built something in that direction, and that I completely believe that's where we are headed towards. And also appreciated what you mentioned, right? I think the overall impact is going to be on companies which are heavily staffed, because when you are heavily staffed, a lot that's because you are doing a lot of manual activities. A lot of things manual requires manual intervention. When you are thinly staffed, it means a little bit of efficiency and productivity is already set up into the team. And while there are incremental benefits that AI can do, but it will be a lot more for companies which are heavily staffed, right? I think that makes a lot of difference in terms of the automations that is required. And cash app is quite a lot bit of pain in terms of manning, matching, and all. And there's a lot of AI things. We've also seen a lot of progress in the overall AI applications, and I personally firmly believe that AI is going to be the differentiator, not only in the credit collections AI space, but also in
Mhm.
the ERP space. What I personally think is that the ERP is one of the biggest reasons why people go for Oracles of the world, Microsoft of the world, is the brand name and the trust these companies have, right? But once companies start building good AI decently, we have products with lesser hallucinations, more better predictability. I think the world will change. The overall ERP market will change over the next 5 to 10 years, and as CFO tech stack market is changing. So loved your answer. I also love the fact that you've actually gone ahead and applied AI to make your work better in terms of the credit scoring and controllership. So loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I kind of, I guess, wrapping up, I know we want to talk some advice about financial professionals. And, and I kind of want to tag on to what you just said about that. Financial professionals, what I'm finding today, first off, I think you have to be forward thinking at all times. You always have to be ahead of others in your company if you want to succeed as a credit and collections professional. The reason I say that is that head count. That's what you hear all the time with companies wanting to reduce head count, people wanting to, do more with less. My suggestion is before you hire anybody, if there is any AI opportunity there where you can actually move people around and keep them without overhiring and then letting go. I hate that to begin with. I don't believe in overhiring people. I believe in working smart and being very understanding of a person's employment. And so one of the things I always have tried to do is hire smart. And now with AI on the verge, you need to look forward, say, if I hire this person, is their job going to go away in 2 years? If it is it really the right thing for me to do? Is it more important for me to go and look at the AI tool or the AI solution right now and implement that versus going and hiring 2 or 3 more people where the job may not be there for them? So all I ask for finance professionals is to think about that before and be understanding and empathetic to your employees. I think that's one of the things that has probably helped me the most over the years is being, as a leader, is being understanding and also transparent with the employees. Let them know what's going on. I will tell you, my department at Trellix and finance, I have the lowest turnover of any department in all of Trellix for finance. I've had 0 turnover in the last 3 years. Those are the key elements that I always find: being honest, upfront, transparent, and being careful who you hire. I've had extra jobs and projects come up, but I have cross-trained and reshifted, and I've done different things where I wouldn't bring too many people on where ultimately, someone said you're overstaffed. And so I've been very, very careful in that sense. So and it doesn't hurt for collection professionals to roll up their sleeves and do some work themselves, sometimes getting into the trenches. Now, you got to stay out of the weeds because then you lose focus on the more strategic aspects. But it doesn't hurt for a project to roll up your sleeves and help your team. They always feel to me when I do stuff like that for them, they feel like, hey, he's really stepping in. He's walking the walk. So those are just some suggestions that has really worked well for me over the years. And I hope that will help some financial professionals in the future manage and lead their teams more effectively.
Got it. Loved your answer. I think the key over here is transparency. I think 2 things you mentioned. One is the transparency that is required with your team members. And the second is, before going for hiring, can AI actually automate that work, taking a step back rather than hiring and then deciding, retrospectively that AI can do this job. So I think that makes a lot of sense because there's a human at stake over here. Hence, a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy and understanding is required before taking any decision. Right. So loved your answer. I think, Mark, that comes across as you as a human being as well. The way you told about it, working across time zone, working across global teams and linking it with transparency. And I can see why you have the least turnover in Trellix. And we come to the end of the podcast. Thanks, Mark, for being a part of the podcast.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, Marta. It was been great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you in Bangalore in November.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mark. And everybody, I hope you had a great time as Mark took us through his journey, his learnings, the entire transformation stories that he has worked on. And you can directly reach out to Mark for any other questions and anything that you want guidance upon. So I hope you had a good time. All the best. Thank you.
Goodbye. Take care.